I think that's the loud message from the disability community that I've been reading recently, is that the disability community is saying, it's not like we didn't tell you these were problems, it's that you didn't fix them, and now you're in our shoes and you're complaining about it.
Welcome to a special episode of The Hummingbird. I'm your guest host, Fernando Albertorio. I hope you, our listeners, are doing well, staying healthy, and safe. In this special series, we are having conversations with experts, leaders, and advocates within the blind and low vision community to learn about their careers, goals, and accomplishments, as well as we're learning from them how we can successfully cope and live in this new normal of COVID-19. This show is brought to you by Sunu, makers of the Sunu Band smartwatch. Visit Sunu at sunu.com to learn more. I'm here with Sassy Outwater Wright. Sassy is the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, MABVI. Sassy is a nationally known leader and advocate, and she's an expert in assistive technology and accessibility. Sassy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. And I don't know if I'd call myself an expert in anything other than getting into trouble, but thank you for those kind words.
Well, definitely, it's a pleasure to have you. You are, at least I learn a lot from you every time we speak, and I wanted to bring you onto the show so that we can share your experiences and the work that you're doing. So we can start by sharing a little bit with our listeners. What do you do, actually, and what's your role at MABVI?
So I am the Executive Director of MABVI, which stands for the Massachusetts Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired. We're a statewide organization that was started by Helen Keller and a group of her cohorts in 1903. And we are there specifically to help blind people deal with the onset of blindness and with living with it in their daily lives in a way that works for them. The model that sets MABVI apart from other blindness organizations is that our kind of running motto is there's no one right way to do adjustment to blindness. There's your way, and as you discover what that is, we're going to support you to figure out the best way to implement those strategies. That's a mouthful, but my job is basically to find new ways of adjusting to blindness and present them to the community, design new programs, lead the organization as we need to change, and as we evolve, work with our community partners, funders, donors, constituents, volunteer teams, and make sure that everybody has what they need to continue to do what we need to do.
Great. And can you tell us a bit more about who you're serving at MABVI?
Yeah, mostly we serve older adults who are just aging into blindness. So they might have recently gotten a diagnosis of an eye disease causing visual impairment, or they may have been living with it for 10 or 20 years, but they may not have been ready to deal with the adjustment part of it quite yet. Some people have successfully adjusted and just need some ongoing support, which they've received from us for anywhere from a couple of months to 30 years. Or more. So we kind of step in at any point. We serve from point of diagnosis of an eye disease or a condition causing vision loss all the way through to total blindness. I myself am a totally blind person. I lost my sight as a kid to cancer, and we do believe in lived experience in our leadership and in our teams. So a lot of our staff members, tech volunteers, and board members are blind themselves. We try to create a good parity there between sighted staff members and blind staff members so that there's a wide breadth of experience and knowledge to draw upon, both lived knowledge and academic credential knowledge.
Wow. I mean, it's definitely, you guys are a leader nationally with the programs that you're doing at MABVI. And, thinking about adjustment, these past couple of weeks, we've all been adjusting to our new normal with COVID-19, the novel coronavirus. A lot of things have been kind of flipped for us. Programs, schools. We had our previous episode where we talked with teachers of the visually impaired and orientation ability specialists, and learning about how those programs have been evolving and changing. Can you share a little bit more about how you guys at MABVI have responded to this new change?
Yeah, most of us go to work in our PJs now. That's a change. Most of our staff has pivoted to working from home. All of our staff is working from home except for essential job functions such as coming in and handling mail or things like that, which is very rare. But our team has really transitioned to um, a new model. We evolved the organization in a 3-day time period from rehabilitation and in-home services and in-community supports to something where we're reaching out via telehealth or over the phone or via video conferencing to deliver our services. From our volunteer teams to our support groups that we run 37 support groups across the state. Those are meeting over the phone. Our tech training is now happening online. People are calling in to have both group sessions and individual training sessions. Our volunteers are checking in with the people that they are matched with to see how they're doing. And our staff members are calling everyone we serve, everyone that we have in our database. We're calling to check in on them and say, do you have access to food right now? Do you have a community support system? Do you have the prescriptions that you need? Do you have the resources you need to get through this situation? And we're working through a set of assessments and just conversation with people. Right now, we serve so many people who are older adults who are in isolated communities. You made a really good point recently in talking to you where you said blindness can be extremely isolating. And so what we're finding is that people who hear from us as we call them and check in are just very grateful to hear from somebody. They just feel isolated. They haven't talked to many people. Many older adults have lost touch with family and friends over the years, or have their support systems have aged, have died, or are far away. And so we find that a lot of people do not have the social support that they need. And so just a friendly voice on the other end of the phone that pauses and says, how are you doing right now, can make the world of difference. So even if they do have everything they need, just a 15-minute chat can turn somebody's day around and help them cope with that loneliness and the isolation that they're experiencing. So we are calling everybody, checking in with them.
No doubt that there's a lot of logistics going on in the back end. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a lot of moving parts here, as
a
well as
lot.
we compare.
Yeah.
When we compare, for instance, services for kids, for younger adults, you guys are working with the elderly population. Talk about vulnerable population right now during this time. There
Yeah.
are so many components around the social, the emotional, the support side that have to happen, as well as you've pivoted really fast, 3 days, pivoting really fast to adjust these services that are normally in co-location, like OT or
Right.
personal therapy or orientation and mobility. How have you and your staff been working on those fronts, especially with those type of services?
So there's millions of checkpoints that have to go into, not millions, but a lot of checkpoints that have to go into every thing that we're putting out from a PR standpoint, from a new program building standpoint, and from a pivot point. Everything has to be checked and double checked, researched, and as soon as you put something out, one of the guidelines from the government is going to change, and so we have to go back and revise or revisit this program we just designed and say, that's not going to work anymore. What are we going to do next? So there's a lot of conversations about adopting new pilot programs, adapting those new pilot programs, and then taking a pause, breathing, and implementing the new guidelines that came out the next day that completely changed what we had just spent days building. So flexibility, adaptability, all of these things are kind of the name of the game here. And it takes a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance, a lot of standing strong on one's ethics and morals, but also the flexibility to have your mind changed and the ability to take guidelines that are given to you by the government or by funders or by those we serve who need something, and to implement them as quickly and as safely as possible.
So no doubt you guys are innovating and you guys are moving at the speed of a startup, very entrepreneurial work.
This is, I think, what originally attracted me to working with MABVI. I come from the startup, the tech culture, the music industry. Everything moves fast. Everything changes on a dime. I like work like this. So I was personally attracted to that MABVI model where it can shift quickly, and people think on their feet and are willing to try new things. I've seen a lot of blindness organizations that aren't willing to try new things or aren't thinking too far outside of the box or sticking with the tried and true. And the one thing I did say to our staff was, let's look at what people are doing and let's do what they're not doing. Let's do the things that are getting missed here. Let's make sure we're posting links to um, the FCC and what they're doing for people who are deafblind, because social distancing is causing horrible problems for them with pro-tactile sign. Let's make sure that we're posting links to the Federal Trade Commission and the fraud detection and the elder abuse lines that are out there, so that if we do find anything, heaven forbid, but if we do find it, we know what to do. So we're focusing on things that we don't often see addressed as fully and as deeply as they need to. And then we're also looking at who can we collaborate with, who can we partner with, when can we be stronger together. That's just kind of very typical of the Massachusetts way of being, as I think of it, is how can we come together to do a better job. So we're really trying to push for collaboration among agencies, both nationally and locally, in age, in blindness, in disability, in advocacy, in entrepreneurship, new evolving technologies and ideas that really highlight how we can come together to serve this community in more innovative and supportive ways.
Yeah, especially in Massachusetts, the whole coming together, stronger together is,
Yeah.
is an important thing. We see the commercials every day, and my follow-up question to you is about, where does MABVI need help? How can people get activated?
Thank you for asking. That's a really big one right now. Every organization right now, every nonprofit needs help. Every nonprofit is serving an important purpose, whether it's providing food to those in need in the community, those who are dealing with houselessness and who do not have a home to shelter in right now. They all need help. They all need support. But the blind community is facing some pretty unique challenges. Like I mentioned, food access is a big issue. Instacart deliveries are tough to come by right now. There's just not a lot of shoppers out there. They don't have enough resources to meet the demand. So that's a big issue. Amazon Fresh is much the same. So food access is becoming the biggest problem that we're seeing. Prescription access, not far behind. Telehealth works great if you know how to use the technology. Not all of our older adults know how to do that. And when a doctor's office says, just click on the thing in the right, that doesn't translate for a screen reader user at all. And doctors' offices are not equipped to answer these questions on screen reader access to the telehealth options that people are putting in place now. So we're seeing that emerge as a need. So MABVI really needs people with technological expertise to volunteer. MABVI needs people who are willing to donate to support new and evolving programs around grocery delivery, as we try to get volunteers in place to help with the grocery situation, while respecting the safety of everyone involved, including grocery store workers, shoppers, and those who need the food. MABVI really needs assistance in terms of community resources and partnerships. So other businesses who have resources to offer in terms of, we have a technological platform that may help you. We have people who are willing to train older adults over the phone. We have people who are willing to support in terms of mental health. Trained clinicians are in short supply right now for mental health. That is a thing that is universal across not just the blindness community, but every community, especially those who are marginalized right now. Support is critical to prevent depression, fear, isolation, loneliness, all of these things that older adults contend with on a daily basis. Now they're just magnified tenfold. So, dollars, expertise, hands, it doesn't matter what you have, there is a use for it. And if it's not with our organization, please find an organization. And whether it is your time, your talent, your expertise in a subject, or your hard-earned dollars. Right now, the nonprofit industry needs all we can get, and MABVI especially needs some support to keep our team together, to keep us out there in the community serving people and developing new and innovative ways to respond to this crisis.
Well, definitely, for sure. And especially, coming back to this coming together part, which is on the other side, we're all having that stress, especially, the stress of navigating the government systems for unemployment,
Mhm.
or even requesting services. What advice can you share for the individuals who are seeking assistance, seeking services from organizations like MABVI?
If you find yourself in a situation where you cannot get access to something, whether it's food, whether it's the unemployment paperwork, whether it is financial information, patient information at a hospital, whatever it is, please reach out to a blindness agency. If you are somebody who can benefit from the services of MABVI in Massachusetts, great, reach out to us, we'll help you. If you have another agency that you prefer to work with, or if you have an agency outside of Massachusetts around the globe, please reach out, get an advocate to work with you. If you are having trouble accessing something, do not go it alone. Now is not the time to hold on to that idea of I have to do it by myself and independently to prove something to the world. The only thing that you have to prove right now is that you can live through this. You can survive this. And you need to pull in every resource that you can. So please ask for help and support. Get an advocate on your side. If you don't know where to turn, ask us. Call us at MABVI. We will help. Go online and find you the advocate that you need. And if we don't know that resource, we know the people who do. We work closely with the National Federation of the Blind, with the World Blind Union, with the American Council of the Blind, and with the American Foundation for the Blind. We work with these agencies, and when we don't know the answer to a question, we reach out to them. They may know. If they don't know, they know somebody who does. And if it has to do with additional disabilities, if you are deafblind, if you have another disability such as autism, there are a lot of organizations who are putting up great COVID resource pages on their websites. We're one of them, but there are many, many, many others out there. Please check those websites. If you can't access the website, call us and we'll do it with you. Whatever needs to happen to get you the support you need, the first thing that has to happen is we need to know about it. Ask us, call us, reach out to the agency that supports you, or reach out to an agency and we will find an agency that supports you. But get help. Don't do this alone, please.
Very helpful advice. Very important
Mhm.
too, because it's all about the access to information. If you can't get the access to information, ask for help. Tap into
Mhm.
that bigger network. And don't go at it alone, because you're not alone. We're all in this together.
I think a lot of people who got diagnosed with an eye disease or a condition, for many years, they don't do everything that they could do. They start beating themselves up that they're not doing what they need to do to adjust to blindness. They think now it's too late. I can't do anything. Um, they, will hit a period where they start to think it's too late. I don't want help. I don't want people to know that I'm suffering right now. I don't want to identify this as suffering. Whatever the situation may be, they don't reach out. That is the singular worst. I don't want to categorize it as worst, but it is not helpful to do that at this time. This is your health on the line. These are your access needs on the line. If you haven't done anything about blindness before now, or you've been resistant to learning something new about blindness and non-visual techniques, that is okay. It is absolutely okay. You did it on your timeline. You didn't do it. That doesn't mean that you can't get through this, and that doesn't mean that we won't find a way to support you. It may look different right now, and it may not be the ideal way that feels comfortable to you. We may not be able to have somebody come and sit at your kitchen table with you, because of their safety and your own. But we will get something in place to work with you. We will need you to do some extra work on your side to make that work. Now's the time to open your mind to new possibilities, to try new things, to push those comfort zones. We all have to push our comfort zones right now, and it feels incredibly uncomfortable and disruptive, but it is how we come together to deal with this. So if you haven't reached out before, if you have been resistant to new techniques that have presented to you, that is absolutely okay. We just ask that now you identify that you are in need and we will find a way that works for you. It may not be the ideal solution or the long-term solution, but it will get us through today.
And just jumping on a bit more the point that you made about, advocating for yourself in the hospital or in a medical situation.
Mm-hmm.
You were featured in a CNN article. It was an amazing article, by the way, at CNN Health, and the link will be below. In the article written by Ryan Pryor is about how people with chronic disease and disabilities are coping in this time. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on your thoughts and takeaways from having done this article, and what do you
Yeah.
see in the conversation nationally?
So I think the article did a good job of laying the groundwork of what we're facing. The article did a really good job of outlining the issues that are faced by various members of the disability and chronic disease community right now. The piece that I want to add on to that and see follow on to this is that there are solutions. I closed the article, or Ryan does a great job of closing the article from Jesse's point of view and from my point of view, saying the disabled community, we're no stranger to this stuff. We are used to dealing with the healthcare system, whereas most people maybe not so much. We're used to dealing with bureaucracy, paperwork, the runaround, the delays, the problems. We're used to being good and strong advocates. We're used to dealing with a lot of this. And so we are the powerful people right now. We need to have a solution-centered conversation. There's a level of victimology that happens when you just point out a problem and you don't point out the solutions to it. So I want to step on from that article and say there are solutions here. There are solutions here such as if somebody gets brought into a hospital, if you are bringing in a tablet to have that patient sign a consent form, if it's an iPad, just turn VoiceOver or Zoom on so the person can read it for themselves. If you are in a situation where you are presenting documentation to a person for consent and you don't have a screen reader or magnification available, just sitting down for 30 seconds and reading to the person, making sure that sign language interpreters are widely available, and if they are not, that written English is available, making sure that things are accessible beforehand, not during a crisis. These are preparatory steps that are not cost prohibitive, but make the world of difference. Even for the able-bodied population, if you have a form available in a variety of formats that is plain English, that is free of graphics, it makes things easier to read for any human being. The things that work for the disability community are not exclusive to the disability community. This is where we get the idea of universal inclusion or inclusive design, where other human beings are factored in, not just the disabled community, or not just, excluding the disabled community. So what works for us tends to work for everybody else too. It's just better practice. For shopping, if we have the hours that are designated for older adults to come shop, how about prioritizing some disability? We need people to be able to self-identify and say, I have a disability. I can't access groceries any other way. I need to access food too. And they need to get priority access on apps like Instacart or something else when they have no other option to get food other than to have it delivered to them, especially if they're homebound because they're immunocompromised. That could be a solution. We can talk about solutions for news things. We'll often see a sign language interpreter interpreting the White House press briefings or news briefings from a state governor, and it's covered up by the station's news banners. Don't cover up the ASL, please. People need that. It's not a nice, pretty accessory. It's a quality of life access issue for someone in your audience. So these solutions can be quickly, easily bullet pointed, outlined, and they're not cost prohibitive. They're things that people can do right now to help mitigate this crisis for everybody, not just the disability community, but everybody. If we're not fighting with the able-bodied population to get our groceries delivered, it frees up a little bit of other time for people to get their groceries delivered and for people to access things. This can work. We just have to be heard from. That's the main point here.
And this is very important to come out because, we need to think about universal inclusive design. And I know that, you had a very interesting podcast about surviving the supermarket. And I listened to your podcast, especially, talking about inside the store. And I saw myself being low vision, when I need to get to label or read something, it takes me longer to shop than my spouse. And luckily, I have my spouse with me, and we can get through it pretty quickly. But again, having that access during the priority hours, because we take longer, or again, the labels, making those accessible, applying some universal design principles here to something as basic as food is very important.
Anybody who knows me knows I need chocolate to survive. Tea and chocolate are the only ways that this organization runs, because I couldn't run without them. So, last week I was out walking my dog to get him some exercise, and we passed a store that had my favorite thing, organic fair trade chocolate. So I go in there to pick up a couple chocolate bars. And I was walking with a friend, and she was reading me the labels. And it took us a couple minutes to get through the labels and to find the things that I was looking for. And a lady comes up behind us. She was social distancing, standing 6 feet away, but she goes, "If you see any white chocolate up there, let me know." And my first thought was, this is where the cacao lives. There's not going to be any white chocolate on this rack, but sure, I'll keep an eye out. So I just kind of nodded at her and smiled and said, "You got it." I went back to listening to my friend read. And as we walked away, the lady kind of came up to the chocolate, and she said to her companion, "They took so long with the chocolate. People shouldn't do that right now. They shouldn't take their sweet time." She was angry that we were standing there. And I did not retort in the heat of the moment. They wouldn't have fixed anything, because this is a systemic version of ableism. This isn't a one-off thing. So I kept my mouth shut, but I did post about it later that day on my social media. And I said, "Dear society, this one's on you. We've been asking for decades or longer for print labels to be large print, or to be braille friendly, or to have more accessible technological features so that we can identify what we're looking at in a store. So that it doesn't take us forever to have an employee or a friend or a spouse or a family member read to us." And now that we're in the coronavirus, we're seeing that it does take us longer, and that it is harder, and that people feel insecure with that time lag. And that people feel uncomfortable when we are out in space right now. They don't want us close to them. We may reach out to grab something and not see that they're there and accidentally touch them. We may have to put our faces closer to things if we're low vision to read, and people don't like people's faces close to anything right now. There's a lot of uncomfortable touch points here. But society, we've been asking you to fix this problem long before this started, and you didn't. So now you can sit there while we deal with the accessibility you left us with. You don't have a choice because we didn't get a choice. So now the shoe's on the other foot, and it's pretty uncomfortable, ain't it? And I think that's the loud message from the disability community that I've been reading recently, is that the disability community is saying, it's not like we didn't tell you these were problems. It's that you didn't fix them. And now you're in our shoes and you're complaining about it. This is where we've been living all this time. Now you get a taste of what it's been like to be us. And it's pretty uncomfortable, isn't it? And I think that's a very telling, accurate message.
Know that it's a wake-up call, and that an opportunity here to make changes and innovate. But our behavior during this time is what's going to set us apart. It's what's going to make the difference when we get out in public. I as a low vision person, I'm trying to be conscious about touching things. In fact, having known and worked in the biochemistry lab, knowing a lot about influenza, I am especially cautious on that part. So I use my phone's camera. I have my hacks, but how we behave to each other is an important part. And how would you, in your point, what recommendations, or what do you see our communities coming together to make this positive change happen? How can that happen?
That's a really, really good question. I'm really glad that you brought that up from that angle, because while I'm coming down on the able-bodied community a little bit and scolding that, I don't want to let us as a blind community or a disabled community off the hook in any way. It's our responsibility too to contribute to solutions here. So our behavior makes the world of difference. How we respond to the able-bodied community now makes a difference. If we come at this from a solution-centered perspective, even if we're tired and angry and confrontational, that won't help fix the problem today. Anger is generative. Anger is good. Discomfort is generative. Discomfort can be good. These things can build things. These things are the catalyst to change. But we have to use them in positive, directive ways, not in negative breakdown ways. If we want a seat at the table, we need to come to the table prepared to push a way forward rather than create an impasse. I think that's a really important message for the disability community right now, especially on an individual level. Um, at MABVI, we get the good, the bad, the tough. And I see some people who come very, very angry that we have changed services, that we can't provide the services they're used to. And absolutely, there should be anger right now. As I said, anger can be good. But I think that we all have to come to the table knowing that things have changed, knowing that these changes, some are going to be short term, some are going to be long term. I think that this is profoundly going to change how blind people live in society and how society functions as a whole. And so all of us have to come to the table knowing that we need to generate new ideas, new things. We need more than ever to be open-minded about how disability evolves in societies that are not designed for us, and in contexts that are not designed for us. So we need to be as openly available to new solutions, proposed ideas, and trials as we can. We need to be willing to pilot new things. We need to test things and experiment with things, knowing that that may not be the ultimate solution. That motto that I've been using, adopt, adapt, that is a really powerful thing. We're going to adopt a new pilot program, see how it works, evaluate it, and adapt it if we need to.
We have an amazing opportunity to learn. Yes, we're going to have the emotions. We're going to feel hurt. We feel angry. We feel stressed. But we have an amazing opportunity to learn and then to move on to acting, to bringing, like you said, bringing something to the table, whether it's your talent, a gift, resources, bringing constructive ideas to the table and action. What does the future look like with this time? It's very tumultuous right now. What does the future look like for organizations like MABVI?
The future looks like, I'm going to go back to a favorite word here, generative disagreement. The future looks like that people with differing opinions can put their voice forward and say what they want to see come out of this. Like a forest fire, things are burning down all around us right now. Things are being taken to the ground. Our systems of economics, healthcare, they're all being burned to the ground by this pandemic. And so what they come back as, what we regrow from this tragedy and this crisis, can be defined by us collectively right now. We each have a powerful voice to decide what happens from here. We are in such a time of turmoil that we do get to decide what happens going forward. I think that this can be something where blind people can pave a way. I don't see this as something that is going to harm our community. I see it as something that is going to drive our community to a status of leadership, because we can take online learning tools and evolve them into things that then push some of the barriers we've been facing in terms of access to orientation and mobility training, for example. We can push those forward. We can do more with virtual reality. We can do more with instruction for those who haven't traditionally received enough of it. There are ways that we can work this to benefit our community and put our community in a more powerful advocacy position. So I do see some good coming out of this.
As well as providing opportunities for employment, and really kind of changing
Yes.
now the scale where now the blind and low vision communities can have access to employment opportunities in this as we move on, moving forward from the new normal.
I'm hopeful that we make some good, healthy changes in our work-life balance.
Well said. Sassy, as always, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I always learn a lot every time we chat, and I can chat with you for hours, but I know you got to get back to work. So
This has been great.
thank you. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, hopefully we can make it through the coronavirus and come together again as people, not as avatars on a screen. So looking forward to the day when we can each be closer together safely and share in the human spirit once more.
We will definitely get there. Thank you so much, Sassy. This has been
Thank you.
amazing. This has been amazing. So This has been a special episode of the Hummingbird. There's no doubt that we are living in a new normal and coping through this coronavirus, but I know we'll get through this. But in these uncertain times, we need each other more than ever. And just like Sassy said, you two have an important role to play, to do your part. So with that, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank our heroes. Thank you to the people at MABVI who are working hard on the front lines and serving those of us most vulnerable. Thank you.